This is the Amateur Fanboy Podcast with your hosts, Chase Aguirre and Mike Hurtaza.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Amateur Fanboy Podcast. Mike, how we doing?
Live, a little bit.
Alive?
Sometimes we're dead, sometimes we're alive, but we never know.
Damn, this is, I think, one of the earlier podcasts we've ever done, huh?
Yeah, so, how's it been in the day life of Chase?
Well, I just got hired on yesterday at a Showtime forum to do some of their posting and their social media and the Twitter. I'm also Greg Bergman's hype man now on occasion on Showtime forum as well as the Blue Reviews. So things are going well, and I'm starting this Costco job next week. So life's good, man. We're doing well on this pod, so things are looking up. It's nice.
Don't die.
Yeah, no, that would be peak me. Everything goes well, and then that's when I die.
Yep. You got a brand new job, couple new jobs now.
Yeah.
But
only one pays, but hey, I don't care. Whatever I can do to get my foot in the door and get things, get experience in certain things that can help my resume.
So what are we talking about today?
We're talking about the AFC South, the division breakdown, over-unders, where we think teams will finish and what order, and then fantasy breakdowns of each division and each team in the division.
So if we go through the standings for last year, the Texans were 11-5. The Colts are 10-6.
I think sorry to interrupt you real quick, but I think the most surprising team last year was the Jags. I think after everything they did last year, everyone thought they were going to be the favorites. Yeah. And then the Colts, nobody knew on the opposite end what Andrew Luck was going to be, and they flipped those.
The reason that is the Titans were 9-7, Jags were 5-11. A lot, like I said, we've talked about it. A lot has to do with the quarterback.
Yeah, and the Titans I expected to be about 9-7 with their quarterback, Mariota. And even if he was healthy, I was like, dude, that team's mediocre at best. The defense is good, but not great.
We'll go through it all, so we don't have to throw it all at once.
Oh yeah, just kind of reflecting on.
We'll start. I guess we'll start with the Jags.
Okay.
5-11. They go out and they sign Nick Foles as their quarterback.
Yep. I think their best receiver is Dante Moncrief.
Marquise Lee, who's coming off of torn ACL. He's back. D.D. Westbrook. Chris Conley, who they signed from the Chiefs. They have Terrell Pryor. We'll see if he even sticks.
Yeah,
it'll be fun if he ends up sticking with a team. Him and with Nick Foles' arm, he can stretch the field. But again, the big issue here is their receiving core, in my opinion. Their offense.
I think Chris Conley was a nice little pickup.
Yeah, but
he's a nice little slot receiver. He did well in Kansas City. I think he'll have a better quarterback, or not a better quarterback. Sorry, more chances. Yeah, bigger role.
Because they also have DJ Chark from last year's draft that they drafted, I believe, in the second. So. Again, they have a lot of young. Well, and Keelan Cole. They have a lot of young players, but nothing stands out. They don't have an elite. They don't have a good receiver. They have a bunch of, young and up and coming players.
I will say, and I'm a little biased because I'm a Cowboys fan, but I think Jeff Swaim could give Nick Foles a really, really good security blanket and could be, I'm not saying a fantasy option, but he could be really solid to help move the sticks, and tight third downs. So I think they got some options. That D.D. Westbrook will obviously spread the field.
But even that, sure, but he's not anything more than an average player. None of their players at tight end. But they did get Josh Oliver in the third this year.
The thing is, for me, I obviously you want to have, the Antonio Browns, the Odell Beckhams, the talented receivers, but I think when a team, and I'm not saying the Jaguars will win this division, I'm not saying they're going to be great this year, but I think when you're able to just give, consistent guys that are just all about the team, I think that you can,
sure, but the thing is, Nick Foles comes from Philadelphia, who has a lot more talent on the offensive side.
Yeah.
There's nothing from the tight end position to the receiving position, even the running back position. Fournette's not anything special, even though he's coming from a top 5 draft slot. Last year, he did not, he's injured. He's had some off-field issues. We don't even know if he makes the team at this point. Then they also have Alfred Blue from Houston and Thomas Rawls. So nothing excites me about this offense outside of Nick Foles. Really, they give him a big contract. We have to see if this guy can come out and produce and actually show outside of what he's done with the Philadelphia. And look, the first time when he was drafted Philadelphia, he was playing pretty good. He gets traded to the Rams. Played terrible, but you could blame that maybe on Jeff Fisher.
Yeah.
And then he goes to the Chiefs. He was a backup there for a year, and he comes back to the Eagles. And again, he shows up again. When he's needed, he shows up for the Eagles. To me, it wouldn't surprise me if this year, if he plays good, he gets cut in a year or two, and he ends up back at the Eagles as a backup.
Right.
So that's something that wouldn't surprise me. But with this team, they're going to win or lose because of their defense.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Their defense is going to keep them in the game. This team is talented. From their D-line to their linebacking core, even though they, I forget what his name is. He did retire for potentially a season. Who's their linebacker?
I cannot remember. Oh, was it? It starts with a T, I think.
Yes, but they're missing him. I can't recall. But they have Miles Jack there. And really, Jalen Ramsey didn't play very well last season. But he's still a good corner. We'll see what he does at that point. They do have a lot of,
Telvin Smith.
Telvin Smith, there you go. He is not playing this year. This defense has talent, so we'll see what happens. I'm going to expect they're not going to be a playoff team, in my opinion.
But their over-under for wins is 5, and I think that's an easy over because I do think they can win somewhere between 6 and 8 games. They're not going to make the playoffs, but I don't think they're going to be that 2-3 win team. I think just with Nick Foles over Blake Bortles that they can easily win.
I can see them being one of the worst teams next year just because their offensive sign is going to be that terrible. But I'll go the over because it's 5 wins is a very low. You sure it's 5 wins?
Yeah, it is 5 wins. 5 wins. Oh wait, that was their 2018.
No, it's 8.
Okay, sorry. I was looking at
the
the
under.
Okay, the 8.
I would take the under. That's easy.
I would take the under because I think 8 is their peak. So I'd go even.
If they were in a different division with, teams not as talented, then I would for sure maybe take the even. But
yeah,
I'll take the under. That's an easy get. So
you're right on that one.
Anything else with the Jags? Anything that you like? Any players that you see is underrated?
Like I said, Jeff Swaim and Chris Conley. I think those guys are gonna make more of a name for themselves this year. I'm obviously high on Jeff Swaim because when he was with the Cowboys, he had a lot of good moments. The Swaim train, as we call them. I think that Jeff Swaim could end up developing into that next top 5, top 10 tight end if things break right for him. But we'll have to see how him and Nick Foles cohere and how things go. But don't be surprised if you're in fantasy and you need a tight end saying week 4 or 5, and Jeff Swaim's one of those guys that you're picking up.
Now, if you look at their rookies this year, they have Josh Allen, who's probably going to be the backup at defensive end. He'll probably come in third down. Yeah. Don't be surprised if he has a high sack total because all he's going to do is basically rush the passer.
And Jalen Ramsey's in a contract season. They just said they're not going to tender his contract, so he's going to want to ball out and go and get paid. So I think he's going to have a really good year this year. And I think if the Jags defense is able to produce to what it was a couple years ago, I think they could win 7-8 games. But if it doesn't for some reason or underwhelms and that offense is what we think it might be mediocre, then you're looking at the 5-6 wins.
I will say I think Josh Allen's probably going to be their value this season on defense. On offense, it's got to be Fournette. The offensive line has talent now. They have Cam Robinson, who they drafted last year. They paid a lot of money for Andrew Norwell. They have Brandon Linder, and they drafted Tyler Jawan this season in the second because he fell to them. So they got to run the ball to be successful. This offense is not going to be a pass-heavy offense, even though that their offensive coordinator, who it comes from the Eagles, he was the quarterback coach when they won the Super Bowl. He was with Nick Foles, and then he went to the Vikings. And he got fired because Mike Zimmer wanted to run the ball, and he's more of a pass-happy. But this offense is not built to be a pass-happy offense. I
agree, and I do think that there will be a lot of growing pains with this offense. But for me, I think they will. What they didn't have with Blake Bortles last year was the ability to because Blake Bortles is good, not good, but he's he's a backup quarterback with the Rams now. Mm-hmm. I think he's a backup quarterback. I think Nick Foles was a backup that could possibly be a starter, and I think what will separate their offense from last year to this year is they'll be able to do more play action because Nick Foles has a better deep arm, so they'll have to trust that more, and I think play actions will work more with this offense.
I'm gonna say I think Nick Foles is basically, to me, he is when you draft or you have a different quarterback on the bench and he's like the the starter for now, but he won't be in the future. That's where I see him as.
And I
can't see him being, maybe because they paid him big money, he'll get another chance next year. I just don't see the season being a successful one based off of what they paid him.
Obviously, they had to go and take a chance because Blake Bortles. You could have put in a dumpster and been better than Blake Bortles.
They could have got Haskins in the draft. They didn't draft. If they didn't sign Nick Foles, he was there when they drafted.
I'm still not high on it. I still think you're better off with 2 or 3 years of Nick Foles than Dwayne Haskins.
Sure, or even. They should have went in the second.
That needs to win now.
They should have drafted a quarterback fairly early, second round, even with Nick Foles.
They should have taken a chance on
Locke.
Yeah, Locke. There you go.
Or even there's other players that
Will Greer would have been a good a guy that you could have developed a couple years behind Nick Foles.
We'll see how this offense produces.
I'm still high on Will Greer. Don't think I forgot about that. I'm still high on Will Greer. I still think he's going to be a successful NFL quarterback.
And then we're moving to the Titans, and this team, it really, to me, look, they have some talent on the offensive side, but it doesn't matter if Marcus Mariota is not on the field.
Yeah.
They got A.J. Brown on a steal in the second round. The 49ers drafted Deebo Samuel early in the second, and I was fine with it, but I want A.J. Brown. I thought, to me, A.J. Brown was the best receiver in the draft.
I think you put A.J. Brown with Corey Davis, and I think they have a chance to, if Mariota's healthy, be really, really good on offense, and that defense will be solid once again, which is why, for me, I think the Titans are low-key can win this division if things break right. And I'm not sure that things will break right. I'm not.
It really depends on Marcus Mariota.
But they were 9-7 last year, and Mariota was hurt a lot of the year. They could be a 10-11 win team if Mariota can stay healthy and that offense can gel.
Their backup quarterback position
is better this year.
Because they got rid of Brian Gabbert. Ryan Tannehill can come in and start, and he could be productive.
Yeah.
The only thing is, both quarterbacks are extremely injury prone.
Yep.
So if one plays, I'm expecting Ryan Tannehill to be injured at some point this season.
Which is why I said, if Mariota's healthy, which is, a big if. But if he is, they do have a chance to compete in that division.
I'm not the biggest Derrick Henry fan. He did start playing better at the back of the season.
No, me either.
I was expecting Dion Lewis to produce more on the receiving aspect.
As was I.
They do have a new offensive coordinator in Arthur Smith, so we'll see how this kind of works out. He was their tight end coach previously. I think they're continuing to run kind of the Sean McVay, Kyle Shanahan. They're going to try to, scheme the receivers open, basically.
I'm still shocked.
Play action. Go for it.
I'm still surprised they didn't take a running back later in the draft. Maybe not Montgomery because he kind of went high, but one of the the guy the Cowboys ended up getting.
I think they got Alex Barnes in the draft, but he.
I think they could have done better.
They're really pushing on Derrick Henry continuing to take the next step.
Yeah.
They do have Dion Lewis and Derrick Henry kind of work together because they're completely opposite. One's a freaking huge 6'2" running back who kind of smashes you.
Right.
And Dion Lewis is going to be that shorter, pass catching, can throw him on the slot and
but they're really going to need Dion Lewis to be better than he was last year.
I agree.
For that tandem to be successful.
They've had a lot of picks lately, and that defense has improved. Harold Landry was a pick that they got in the second last year. I thought, they've gotten a lot of great value in the second round the past 2 years, in A.J. Brown and now with Harold Landry at the outside line position. They also have Cameron Wake from the Dolphins as well.
I think Jeffrey Simmons was a good get too for them.
Mm-hmm. Gerald Casey is one of the best nose tackles in the league. So we'll see what happens here.
And then they drafted Hooker.
They got Hooker. They still got Kenny Vaccaro. Kevin Byrd is one of the best safeties in the league. Malcolm Butler has been an overpaid player, but he needs to produce based off what his contract is, because basically he's going to get cut this season.
And they still got a Dory Jackson.
And they got a Dory Jackson, but he needs to take the next step at this point.
No,
he is, to me...
Their defense, in my opinion, has a potential to be that top 5 defense this year, but it can also be at the back end as well.
They have high potential. It's a huge bust or boom kind of thing. But they, with Mike Vrabel, they got they have that defensive-minded coach, so they got to really produce. But at the end of the day, like every team, we're gonna review. This team, probably one of the more kind of similar to Jimmy Garoppolo. This guy's got to stay healthy, Marcus Mariota.
Yep.
If this team's gonna make the playoffs, it's because he stayed healthy. And based off his history, he's not going to stay healthy. He's going to be injured. He's looking for a new contract. I don't know if I'd give it to him at this point, knowing that he's
I just
injured
love Marcus Mariota from his time in Oregon, and I'm rooting for the guy. So obviously,
he's a good guy.
I want to see him be healthy, and I'm really rooting for him.
For any underrated players, do you see here?
On offense, I like we talked about. I mean, he's not really underrated, but I really like AJ Brown. I think he could potentially be one of those receivers. And I mean, we don't want to talk about fantasy right away, but one of those guys that could make that
steal.
He could be a steal. If you get him in the 5th, 6th, 7th round, could end up being a top 5 receiver in fantasy this year.
They did sign Adam Humphries from Tampa Bay. He's gonna be their slot receiver.
Yeah, he'll be nice.
He's one of the better slots in the league. So it's another, adding to a very young core.
And let's not forget, Delaney Walker will be back this year.
Yeah, we didn't even talk about him.
Delaney Walker, AJ Brown, and Corey Davis. That makes for a really good three-headed monster going through that secondary.
Even if they're able to run the ball or not, Marcus Mariota is the reason they're going to win.
And then Jonnu Smith also made a name for himself near the end of the year, so they can go double tight end. So I think, like I said, if Mariota can stay healthy, this offense with Derrick Henry, if he takes that step forward like he did last year, they have potential to win 10, 12 games.
Don't forget, they have Rashaan Evans still that they drafted last year in the first. So,
like I said, they got a lot of guys on there on the offense and defense. They got a lot of potential, and it'll be interesting to see how it works.
So moving on to their odds, the Titans are at 8.
8. I would take the over. I'm gonna take the over. I think
it's tough because I see them around 7 or 8, 9 wins.
I see them anywhere from 8 to anywhere from 10 to 11. So I'm gonna take the over because I think 8 is probably their floor. I still think this team always seems to win around about 8, 9 games every year. They won 9 games last year and Mariota wasn't even healthy. So I'm going to definitely take the over because I think they will be better, and I'm banking on that.
I'm going to go the under because I'm banking on Marcus Mariota not being healthy.
But they won 9 games without him being healthy last year, and I think they have a better backup quarterback.
The thing is, the Jaguars,
still do it.
The Jaguars are better. The Colts are better, and the Texans. These teams continue to improve.
I don't know how much better the Jags got, but we'll have to wait.
Well,
and
Nick
see.
Foles. That's what I'm saying. I still think.
Yeah.
I think the Jags can go out there and beat them maybe once or twice. So
they always give them a tough time. That's for sure.
Moving to the Colts, who were 10-6, and they just seem to be getting better and better since Frank Reich has been here. Frank Reich. Andrew Luck staying healthy is huge. If this guy continues to be healthy, to me, he's a dark horse for MVP this season. He's continued to add weapons to this offense. They still got T.Y. Hilton. They signed Devin Funchess, who isn't very special, but he is a red zone threat on top of what they've already had in Eric Ebron, who's a huge red zone threat. They drafted Priest Campbell in the second, he comes out of Ohio State, and he, to me, is a very underrated receiver. This guy can... I think he reminds me of Odell Beckham. And I'm not saying he's going to be, but he reminds me of him. So, could you imagine, though, Andrew Luck with Odell Beckham? It would be one of the crazier things that we've seen.
I think this team is going to be one of the...
I think this team competes.
No, 100%. But for me, I'm looking at it fantasy-wise. I think it's going to be one of the toughest teams to judge after Andrew Luck and Marlon Mack. Because Eric Ebron's nice in the slot. In the zone. Jack Doyle's still there, so we don't know what. And then you got 4 or 5 receivers. You got Chester Rogers, T.Y. Hilton. Obviously, T.Y. Hilton's but after that, it's Chester Rogers.
To me,
Paris Campbell, does he emerge? Zach Pascal from last year, and then even Darius Fountain. So is it Darius?
They got Deion Kane as well.
So it's gonna be interesting to see who establishes himself as that 2.
If I'm putting my money, T.Y. Hilton is going to be the top dog in this offense. He just needs to stay healthy, and that's the thing.
Agree.
And that offensive line continues. They're going to be one of the better offensive lines this year. They invested a lot. And Braden Smith, 2nd-round pick. Ryan Kelly was a 1st-round pick. Quentin Nelson was a 1st-round pick. Anthony Costanzo was a 1st-round pick. They have a lot invested in offensive line to keep Andrew Luck healthy.
Agreed.
This defense... It doesn't really, outside of Darius Leonard, they really don't have any big names. Malik Hooker's the only other big name because he was a top safety that they stole in the draft because he fell to them. They have Shepard. Outside of that, there's not really anything on their defense that is very, there's no big names outside of those players.
I think Leonard is going to be huge if he's able to build on that Rookie of the Year campaign Defensive Player of the Year campaign that he had last year. I think that's going to be huge. If he, for some reason, takes a step back or isn't as productive, then that defense goes back to where it was before that. And
that defense wasn't top 10. It was a top 15.
No, and defense. That's what I'm saying. And it was
they were good enough to win.
Exactly.
Because their offense, their offense is going to keep them off the field, and that's exactly what needs to happen.
But I think they need to be that again this year to be really successful. Mm-hmm. And if they're not, then they'll make the playoffs, but they probably won't challenge.
I will say like they did draft very well. They have a lot more depth at their linebacker position, and they did get Yasin Rock in
Rock Yasin, yeah.
Yeah. They did get him in the draft, and he's a huge 6'2"
sounds
corner.
like the start of a rap song.
Yeah.
Rock Yasin. Anyway.
So this team's gonna be fun to watch. To me, this is the team I'm expecting to take out the Patriots and make it to the Super Bowl. I'm not saying to win it all, but because it's hard to predict that at this point. But to me, they got a chance to go to the Super Bowl and to win it all. They're going to be one of the better teams. And if we're not even talking about their running back position, they have a lot of good players at running back, but there's not one specific guy. Marlon Mack, if he can stay healthy, would be the lead back. But Nyheim Hines has been outstanding on third down. He could throw out
and so has Wilkins. And then they also got Spencer Ware, who he was good with the Chiefs.
Sure, if he's able to make the team, it's going to be interesting. This team though, it's pretty deep at that running back position.
Yeah.
And if for whatever reason Andrew Luck does get injured, Jacoby Brissett can step in and do what he does.
Yeah.
I'm pretty confident with this team. Their offense is probably going to be one of the top 5 offenses, and their defense should be good enough to push them over the top.
Agreed.
Anything else? Any underrated players you see here?
Honestly, I liked Mo Alley Cox a lot last year. I think he showed a lot when Ebron wasn't on the field, and when Doyle got hurt, he stepped up. But I still think Eric Ebron, if he's healthy, is the tight end you want.
Well, look, and if we're talking, we'll talk fantasy. Jack Doyle's going to be playing most of the snaps. Eric Ebron's more towards the, would need to get a first down a first down or score a touchdown, in the red zone. That's where he makes his big money because he's a huge target.
But I think that's what's, we'll talk about
that's that. What's so fun about the Colts. They have a lot of different pieces, and again, they're running the Eagles' offense at this point, and so it's fun to watch, and I'm expecting high things from them. So, lastly, it's going to be the Texans.
The Houston Texans.
Houston Texans, and this team is an interesting team because they got to take a next step this season. It's going to be weird because they don't have a GM, which at this point doesn't really matter. Bill O'Brien, to me, every year I keep saying this is the year he needs to win, or he's not going to make playoff, or he's not going to be head coach. And they somehow get close to win enough to make the playoffs or make the playoffs with nobody at quarterback. They get Deshaun Watson. They draft Deshaun Watson. He was winning, and then he tears ACL. They were playoff bound if it wasn't for that ACL.
Yeah.
So last year they were playoff bound, but they didn't really make any noise. This team, the big problem with them is their offensive line. Deshaun Watson is the most sacked quarterback last season. It was Deshaun Watson, then Dak Prescott. So Deshaun Watson, they need to keep this guy healthy. They need to keep him in the pocket. They go out and they draft Titus Howard. It wasn't, that great to me of a pick. I think they overdrafted him in the first. And then they did go back-to-back and they drafted a guard and Mac Shepring in the second. So they did their best to continue, and they did sign some players in free agency.
I think Nick Martin's a nice get. I think Nick Martin, the brother of Zach Martin, I think those two brothers are really good at their positions. So it'll be really interesting to see how they're able to
I think the issue with Nick Martin is injury. That's his big thing. Look, if you look at the receiving core, they are deep. DeAndre Hopkins, Will Fuller, Kiki Kuti. When Will Fuller got injured, Kiki Kuti stepped up, and so they have, to me, DeAndre Hopkins is the best receiver in the game right now. They all just got to stay healthy. Will Fuller if he's healthy, he's a deep ball receiver. To me, on offense is that offensive line and that running game. Lamar Miller is as average as you can get to me. Dante Foreman did not play last season. He came off, I believe, a torn Achilles, if I remember correctly, from not last season, the year before. It wouldn't surprise me if Deontay Foreman. I could be wrong if it was a torn Achilles. It might have been a shoulder issue, but to me, he's got to win the game. He's got to win the running back position. He's the most talented player on this running back group at this moment. And then on the defense, they have a lot of talent from J.J. Watt, Jadeveon Clowney, Whitney Merciless. They just Justin Reed. I love Justin Reed. I thought he was a steal for them in the third last season. This defense just needs to continue to stay healthy, come together, and perform. It really, to me, again, it's the offensive line. If they can start, protecting, Deshaun Watson, this team can be where they're at right now. So the win totals, I don't think we did the win totals for the Colts. We'll do that real quick. Lee, the Colts
were 9.5. I'll take the over.
I'll take the over on that. And the Texans are
8.5.
I'll take the over.
I'll take the over as well.
Yeah, I think the Texans are a little bit easier of an over.
Yeah.
Those two teams to me are one of them's going to be a wild card and one's going to win the division. The other two are not going to be in the playoffs, in my opinion. Yeah. Titans have a chance if Marcus Mariota stays healthy. So, any underrated players on the Titans or on the Texans you want to talk about? Any
on the Texans, Vincent Smith kind of came out last year in the playoffs. He was as a receiver when Cootie was hurt, and Fuller obviously being hurt a lot. But I think that, like you said, Deonta Foreman is going to win it. He's got to win the job because Lamar Miller. I mean, we slept on him last year and he did well. But I mean, how much? I don't know how much longer he's got as far as
he's as average as you possibly get. To me,
he's not average from a talent aspect, but he's getting older.
No, I think he's average as you can possibly get. I do not. To me, he is as boring as a player as you can get. He's nothing. He's not good at anything. He's average at everything.
I wouldn't go that far.
Lonnie Johnson to me is the player that he drafted in the second from Kentucky. If this guy can play. Their big issue was their secondary last season from safety standpoint. Deshaun Gibson from Jacksonville comes over here, so they gotta perform on the secondary. Other on offense, Dante Foreman, man, he's the if you had a we'll talk about fantasy right now, but if you're looking at one of the last picks of fantasy on your draft, I would take a chance on him. If he starts, he's going to have an opportunity to score a lot of touchdowns and get some yards. So the offensive line is my only concern with this team. Yeah. This team could falter because of that. But talking about fantasy, any player from the Texans that you're excited for?
So we're going to start with the Texans. Yeah. Obviously, DeAndre Hopkins. I think he's a top 3 receiver in fantasy this year. He's always is.
I think he's drafted. He's like a first-round receiver right now.
Deshaun Watson, I'm still I think you can get good value with Deshaun Watson. He still puts up numbers.
Yeah, and he still has the running aspect. Not too much, but he does produce on that point. Yeah. Where he's to me he could be a top 5 quarterback. Yeah. He's right now top 10.
I think you have 2. I think you could end up having possibly 2 of the top 5 quarterbacks in fantasy in this division this year.
Sure. Oh yeah, for sure. With Andrew,
Andrew Luck, Deshaun Watson, and even if Mariota can stay healthy, he could be top 10. So it'll be interesting to see how things work out.
I'm staying away from Lamar Miller. I'm not drafting him. Sure, if he falls a good point, I'll take him. But
I would take him as my flex.
No, see, I just don't buy. I can see him not winning the job. That's my concern. Because they can cut him, and they have a $6 million. He has no guarantees at this point in his contract. I can see him getting cut. That's my issue. We'll see once because if you're drafting right now, it's a terrible time to draft.
Obviously,
at this point.
Know.
It's too early. Will Fuller. Again, this guy, he cannot stay healthy, but if he can stay healthy, he's a huge weapon. And then Kiki Kuti was, he's a waiver steal last year for you.
Yep.
And, of course, the defense is top 15 defense, top 10. So they're startable.
I'm just curious to where this defense will go after this year because they didn't come to an agreement with Jadeveon Clowney, so he's going to need a contract probably by this time next year. And if they don't want to pay him, then that
as long as he's on the field, that's all that matters.
I mean, this year that's all that matters. Yeah. But going forward,
for fantasy, on the Colts, there's just a lot of of course Andrew Luck. To me, he's the number two. To me, he's the number 2 quarterback in fantasy.
Behind Mahomes. Yeah.
And then Marlon Mack, he's probably a third round running back at this point.
Yeah.
Eric Ebron, the thing with Eric Ebron, if he doesn't score a touchdown, you don't get many, if any, points with him.
But I will agree with you there, but for me, why I would take him over Doyle is because I think this team's going to be in the red zone a lot this year, and I think he's one of Andrew Luck's favorite targets. And I think, like I said, if he just gets a touchdown a week, he puts up 8-10 points a week in fantasy, and that's all you need out of the tight end, especially in leagues where you have to start a tight end. I would be fine with Eric Ebron.
The thing with Jack Doyle is if he's healthy, he's on the field. That's the only concern.
And I understand that. And I'm kind of saying this from the aspect that I had Jack Doyle on my team last year, and he never did shit for me, so it's hard for me to trust.
He was injured a lot of the time.
And I don't know. If I take a guy for the first time or one of the first times I take him and he gets hurt, it's hard for me to trust him again until I see more.
T.Y. Hilton, to me, this coming year, if he's healthy, he's a top 5 receiver.
Yeah.
Devin Funches, the only thing with him, it's that potential of the touchdown aspect. Outside of that, I'm probably, if he's a depth player on your bench, potentially on a bye week, you throw him in. But I
actually like Chester Rogers as the number 2 receiver on this team.
Oh, I don't think Chester Rogers is going to start. This team's too deep. I think Paris Campbell has a bigger chance to start.
Oh, no. I'm just saying, Paris Campbell has a chance to, but right now I would say Chester Rogers is number 2 receiver on this team.
Well, no, Deion Kane's the number 2 receiver on this team. He was the number 2 last season until he got injured.
I guess we'll see.
And so, we'll see with that. Nyheim Hines, you can start Marlon Mack and Nyheim Hines if you needed to at the same time.
Yeah.
Because they're both going to produce. One's going to produce on third down, and one's going to get the most of the carries. So if you're in a half point or more likely a full point PPR, Nyheim Hines is your guy who can go in and get you enough targets to be able to start. And to me, he's probably a flex option.
I picked him up as an option last year. Started him a couple of times on a bye week with my running backs, and he did well.
He did well. He does get the carries, and Andrew Luck does like throwing to him. That's what counts.
Yeah.
And this defense, to me, is undraftable at this point. If there's the worthy of playing a team that's one of the worst offenses, then sure you could throw them in, but at this point I would not touch them.
Yeah, no, they're definitely a waiver wire defense, or in a league where you have waiver wire.
So Titans, this team is very boom bust on fantasy. If you look at the running back position, Derrick Henry did not produce for like 10 games last season. People kept starting him because they're like, oh, he's gonna do it, and he never did until the end of the season. Yeah. He had one big game,
and the one big game is when most people didn't start him.
Nobody started him.
Yep.
Deion Lewis was a disappointment for me last year.
Oh yeah, hell yeah, agreed.
I didn't have him in any of my teams, but you were expecting him to go out and especially on a full point or half point to actually produce some catches, kind of similar to what you think what Nyheim Hines is going to do this season. Yeah. Is what I thought Deion Lewis. I thought you could start both backs, not full point PPR, but half point PPR. You could start both backs, and get some production. Again, I would probably draft Deion Lewis over Derrick Henry just because I don't believe in Derrick Henry.
I would take Derrick Henry before Deion Lewis.
Not in a full point. I just don't think. I still believe that Deion Lewis is going to be productive. And I know a lot of players leave the Patriot system and aren't productive. I still believe he will.
He's another guy. I saw more from Derrick Henry last year than I saw from Deion Lewis. So I'm going to obviously take the recency bias when it
Corey
comes to
Davis, he was a little bit of a disappointment last year because he couldn't stay healthy, but this is his big year. It's his 3rd season starting. He's got to produce. So he might be a little undervalued right now because he didn't produce last season. So it's somebody to keep an eye on, especially during camp. AJ Brown's the huge get to me. He's one of my value picks in this draft. I think this guy's going to end up starting over Tad Sharp and be one of the steals this season that we talk about next year.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
He's my underrated value player, probably in the all of fantasy right now. Because I just have high. If this guy can stay healthy, health is an issue with him. But if he's healthy, he's gonna produce. Anything else about fantasy for the Titans?
No, I think we're good.
All right, Jacksonville Jaguars. I don't know if I want to touch any of these players outside of a potential backup option on my bench that for when there's buys coming out. Marquise Lee's probably the biggest, potential. You could probably put him at flex. He is coming off an ACL, which isn't that big of a deal these days and age, but he'd be the player I would probably draft as a potential the highest player. Fournette could be your number 2 back or your flex. I just don't feel comfortable.
I wouldn't sleep on D.D. Westbrook.
D.D. Westbrook,
I think he finally gets a quarterback that can throw the ball, and I think he has a chance. And even Keelan Cole could make some noise too. He did well last year towards the end. So
they do have. I will say they have a lot of young pieces. Somebody's got to come up. And
exactly. And like I said, you take
DJ
a chance
Chark
on one of them and
is a big
guy too.
A big guy to watch.
And then that defense is always good. They're always top 10. They're definitely drafted.
I do wish they had come out and brought someone else in at that running back position just to compete. I do like that they get Alfred Blue, but he's nothing too special. Fournette's going to be the bell carrier.
Thomas Rawls, when he's healthy, is not bad.
And
Benny Cunningham was good for at times. I think they have 3 solid guys that could they could plug in if Fournette is unhealthy, but they really need Fournette to stay healthy.
But Fournette is they spent a high draft pick. He needs to produce.
Agreed.
Outside of that, anything you want to comment about the AFC West? Who do you got? What order?
I will take right now the Colts, the Texans, the Titans, and the Jaguars.
So the way it was last year.
Essentially, yes.
Yeah, I probably have it.
What? No, the Texans won the division last year.
Yeah,
I said Colts and Texans, so flip those two. But then, pretty much.
I think it's flip flop on the Colts and the Texans, but I do have the Colts as my my top team. I probably have them. I think the Colts can be 12-4. I really do.
I think so too.
Texans will probably be between 9 and 10 games. Titans, to me, they could be anywhere between 6 and 9 games. The Jags, I think, could be one of the worst teams in the league in 2 wins or 3 wins. But I probably put them about where they were at last year. 5 wins and they fire everybody, and they kind of redo this.
Blow it up and try it over again.
So with that, we'll end the pod. Anything you want to comment?
No, I think we're good.
What would be your thing, because we haven't talked about it, is Zeke's holdout?
I'm not even worried about it, man, to be honest. I know they want Zeke to be on this roster long term. I know he's had some issues in the last couple weeks, but we can all agree that the incident in Vegas was literally nothing.
He didn't get suspended, so it doesn't matter.
And he didn't get suspended, and I never thought it should have even been considered. I don't even think he should have been having a meeting with Goodell to begin with, but, whatever. It is what it is. I think it's fine. I still pay the guy. You pay him anywhere from probably 12 to 14 million, whatever, you think he's worth. Give him, if you have to, give him a raise, like a 2-year raise extension, and then you can talk maybe extending the contract after that just so you can get him in camp, because what you do not want to do, and I know the Cowboys are smart enough to do this, at least lately, you have a great freaking roster this year that has a chance to win a Super Bowl. You do not screw that up by having Zeke not there for training camp.
My big issue, and especially on fantasy side, is if he's not in camp, I'm probably dropping him a little bit on my rankings. Like right now, in a half-point PPR, I might put Christian McCaffrey over Zeke. And maybe Kamara. But the thing is, I have a tough time with Kamara because he's just not going to get the carries that you want, the amount of carries. But the longer Zeke holds out, the longer I'm probably going to keep dropping him. He needs to. I want him in camp because to me, he's a top 2 back right now in fantasy.
Oh yeah.
And so right now I have him at 3 because I have Christian McCaffrey over him because he's not going to show up at camp. We'll see if he shows up, then I'll put him back at 2. I would rather take if you look at Le'Veon Bell, I'm not saying he's going to hold out because he wasn't franchised. He's going to show up before the first game, but if he shows up the week before, or a couple days before the, week 1, I'm going to be very upset. So by the time drafts come along and he's still holding out, I'm probably avoiding him outside the top 5.
I will be absolutely shocked if Ezekiel Elliott doesn't have a contract before training camp starts.
A new contract?
A new contract.
I can see the Cowboys having him hold out and wait it out.
I just don't think you can do that with how great you want this roster to be this year. You need just to make sure everyone's there at training camp.
One thing that we do know is he has 2 years left on his contract, and the Cowboys have been, as of right now, been building for the future. They continue to build for the future.
And like I said, if you want, give him a raise. Give him like a pay raise or something. Or, I don't know what he's making going into this year.
I think he's making $3 million this season.
Yeah, so give him like a raise of give him like a $6-7 million extension for 2 years or something. Just give him something to make him happy so he comes into training camp.
Yeah,
that's all I ask.
I think he's not coming in unless he gets a long-term deal, though. I don't think he comes in if
then you do what you need to fucking do.
What is he getting paid?
His team is a Super Bowl contender. You cannot fuck. If Zeke doesn't come to training camp, then you ruin all that.
Zeke at this point I think he's valued probably. I think he should be the top back paid. I think he should pass Todd Gurley.
I don't think he will end up being the top back paid, but I think he should be.
I think he's probably aiming at $15 million a year. Okay. Is probably what he's getting.
That's fine. I've already said it once. I'll say it again. You can pay Amari Cooper. You can pay Dak Prescott. You can pay Zeke. Hell, if you want to, you could probably pay Byron Jones at some point if you wanted to. The Cowboys are not in salary cap hell, and I'm not concerned at all about that. Sure, but
they can't. They could be. They could put themselves if they resign everybody.
They really can't. I'm telling you, it's really not a thing. But that's beside the point.
I mean, if they resign everybody, they will be.
I mean, you believe what you want to believe. I choose to believe that Mike Fishes of the world that literally have laid out everything as to how the Cowboys can put themselves in a fine position.
But you've agreed, though, the one player that they probably won't re-sign is Byron Jones.
And that's fine. And I don't think
that's what I'm saying.
And I'm fine if they don't re-sign Byron Jones, but they can. And that's the only point I try to get across to people when they bring this. Oh, they can't pay everyone. Yeah, they can.
Well, offensively they can, but not everybody on their defense.
I mean, they can pay Jalen Smith, they can pay Zeke, they can pay Dak, they can pay Amari, and they can be fine. So I'm not, like I said, we're not going to talk about this right now. The point is, Zeke will get a contract before training camp, and I'm not concerned at all about it.
With that, we'll end the pod, and if anything crazy happens, like someone eats chicken nuggets for breakfast, then we'll let you know.
If it comes out that Anthony Davis lost 5 pounds, we'll come and we'll do an emergency podcast.
Anthony Davis? We are excited because training camp for, I believe the Cardinals start today. Yeah. I think the players reported the next week is when
training camp start like late July
for most teams. Yep. So we're excited to start covering. Hopefully we want, I'm knocking on wood, because we do not want players to be injured, especially on my Niners and the Cowboys. We want healthy teams.
I'd rather if you told me that we could have every dude healthy on every team this year for a full 16 games, I'd rather see that than any other.
Could you imagine?
Because I just want to be able to, all these guys with these potential, I want to see what they can be. I hate injuries to fuck that up.
But they always happen. It's part of the game.
Yeah, of course.
There's going to be players the first day of camp. The Cardinals might have a player who tears the ACL today or tomorrow.
Yeah, right.
So it happens. Every team has a player that always gets injured or multiple players. So with that, we'll end it.
Okay.
Bye. Check us out on Twitter at AmateurFanPod.
Amateur Fan Pod or Amateur Boy Fanboy Podcast on Twitter.
No, I think it's Pod.
Is it Amateur Fan
Whatever.
Fan Pod? Whatever it is.
And then we're also on Facebook now, Amateur Fanboy Podcast. Check us out, like us there.
And we're on YouTube as well.
We are on YouTube, so if you want to see us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Anchor, Stitcher, all your Google Podcasts, all of them, we are on all of them, and we want you to watch us or listen to us. We are looking to start, at least in August, one time a week, we do a live video podcast.
Yes, and actually, something else I want to say is, if you guys want, you can go ahead and leave a review on either Apple or Stitcher or whichever podcast you can leave reviews on and ask questions. And if
you can tweet us too.
Yeah, and tweet us, and we'll have a podcast where we answer your guys' questions.
You can also on Anchor send us video messages of questions. On there, you can send it to us. We'll put your audio in the clips on here,
and we'll answer them.
If you have if you go out and ask, why is Chase such a homer, please post that. And we'll answer it the next one. Maybe we might have a video. Carson, if you are listening, please post that. Why Chase is such a homer, and we'll break it down for you. Bye.